Catherine had the most traumatic year of her life, and her cancer battle was made only worse by some of the terrible abuse and mockery that she received online from some of Prince Harry and Meghan's most outspoken and unpleasant supporters. I've looked into this, the new Palace Confidential newsletter, and while Catherine was receiving treatment and going through some of her hardest times, she was also having to face this barrage of really nasty abuse and mockery online. For more royal insights, comment newsletter, and I'll send you all the details of how to sign up.
Richard Eden, you are an opportunistic parasite. You don't give a damn about Kate Middleton's health, her privacy, or her peace. What you care about is email signups, click-through rates, and monetizing her illness to push your tired tabloid trash to an equally tired audience. You're not a journalist. You're a gossip merchant who stumbled into the palace gates by clout-chasing cancer updates. And let's really talk about this latest stunt. You're pretending to be Kate's white knight, crying crocodile tears about mockery and abuse from Meghan and Harry supporters, while actively platforming and profiting from the same vitriol that drove Meghan to suicidal ideation when she was pregnant and hounded by your industry. Where were these fragile feelings while Meghan was being compared to a monkey by a BBC host? Where was your outrage when the Daily Fail was dissecting her womb and her truth is, you don't care about online abuse unless it can be weaponized against Meghan. You're not protecting Kate. You're exploiting her. Just like you exploited Meghan. And just like you'd exploit a puff of royal perfume if it meant boosting your signups. And don't act like this abuse only comes from Meghan fans. Because we've all seen the receipts. The death threats Meghan gets. The slurs, the deep fakes, the constant racist bile. And she's never gotten a single ounce of your sympathy. Not one. Why? Because you're not covering the royals? You're covering for the royals. You're not here to report facts. You're here to carry water for an institution that feeds off Meghan's dehumanization. So you're women. You're here to package their pain into profit. And if Kate is going through the hardest year of her life, then shame on you for using that to boost your brand. Say it with me. Richard Eden doesn't care about Kate. Richard Eden cares about Richard Eden. Period. This man isn't a journalist. He's a royal PR mouthpiece with an agenda. And you'd be a fool to think otherwise.
My dear viewers, let's dive into a story that's as old as the crown itself. A tale of power, privilege, and the press that thrives on tearing people apart. It's a story about crocodile tears, those false displays of sympathy meant to manipulate, not mend. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the media's obsession with the British royal family, particularly how it's weaponized the lives of two women, Catherine, the Princess of Wales, and Meghan Sussex, the Duchess of Sussex, to sell papers, boost clicks, and keep the public divided. This isn't just about gossip or headlines, it's about a system that profits from pain, cloaking itself in concern while fanning the flames of division. So buckle up, because we're about to unpack a narrative that's been carefully spun to keep you distracted, and it's time to see it for what it really is. Let's start with the spark that lit this fire. Richard Eden, a self-proclaimed royal correspondent, recently penned a piece claiming that Catherine's cancer experience was made worse by mockery from Meghan Sussex's online supporters. Picture this: a woman battling a life-altering illness, already under the weight of royal duty, and now, according to Eden, she's being tormented by mean tweets from faceless accounts. If that's true, it's heartbreaking. No one should face cruelty during their darkest moments. But let's pause and ask ourselves, is this the full story? Or is it a carefully crafted narrative designed to pit one royal woman against another, to keep the drama alive and to keep you scrolling? Because when you dig deeper, the cracks in this story start to show, and the hypocrisy of the press becomes impossible to ignore. Let's rewind the tape. Where was this righteous indignation, this fierce protectiveness, when Meghan Sussex was the one under fire? Where was Richard Eden's pen when Meghan Sussex was hounded by the British press day after day with a ferocity that was nothing short of vicious? When royal commentators called her exotic like she was some rare artifact, where was the outrage? When a BBC broadcaster compared her unborn child to a monkey, where were the editorials condemning racism? When tabloids like the Daily Mail dissected her womb, her nose, her walk, her very existence, where was the journalistic concern? And when Meghan Sussex, pregnant and vulnerable, confessed to suicidal thoughts triggered by the relentless abuse enabled by the very industry Eden represents, where was his newsletter then? The silence was deafening. The truth is, the press wasn't just silent. They were complicit. They fueled the fire, profited from the clicks, and left Meghan Sussex to fend for herself in a storm they created. Now, let's be clear. This isn't about denying Catherine's pain. Her cancer diagnosis is a devastating chapter and no one should diminish that. But to use her suffering as a cudgel to attack Meghan Sussex, to paint her supporters as the villains, is not just disingenuous, it's exploitative. Richard Eden and his ilk aren't protecting Catherine. They're weaponizing her story to keep the royal drama machine churning. They're not watchdogs holding power to account. They're lapdogs for the monarchy, cherry-picking narratives that fit the palace's agenda. And let's be brutally honest. If Catherine is enduring the hardest year of her life, shame on anyone who uses that pain as bait to boost their email list or line their pockets. This isn't journalism, it's opportunism. It's turning royal pain into tabloid profit, again and again and again. The hypocrisy runs deeper than you might think. The British press has a long history of exploiting royal women, from Princess Diana to Sarah Ferguson, to now Meghan Sussex and Catherine. They build them up, only to tear them down when it suits the narrative. Diana was the people's princess until she wasn't, until her independence became a threat. Meghan Sussex was the breath of fresh air until she dared to speak her truth. And Catherine, she's the perfect princess now, but the moment she steps out of line, the same knives will come for her. The press doesn't care about these women as human beings. They care about them as commodities. Stories to sell, headlines to hawk. And when someone like Richard Eden points the finger at Meghan Sussex's supporters, claiming they're the problem, he's, well, just deflecting from the real scandal, the media's role in making these women's lives unbearable. Let's talk about the user on X who really, nailed it. Notorious JTB. They called Eden out for what he is, a gossip merchant who stumbled into a royal connection and hasn't looked back since. You don't need a press badge to see it. His entire career is built on inflaming hatred for Meghan Sussex, while cloaking it in concern for Catherine. It's a playbook as old as the tabloids themselves. Create a villain, stoke division, and watch the profits roll in. But here's what needs to be shouted from the rooftops. Meghan Sussex's supporters aren't the threat. The real scandal is how Meghan Sussex was treated, hounded, vilified, and driven out of the royal family by a press that thrives on her pain. The threat is a media machine that picks and chooses who gets sympathy and who gets scorn, all while pretending to care about protecting women. This brings us to the heart of the matter, crocodile tears. The phrase comes from an old myth that crocodiles weep to lure their prey, a false display of emotion to mask their true intent. That's what we're seeing here, not just from Eden, but from an entire industry that sheds tears for Catherine while ignoring the wounds they inflicted on Meghan Sussex. It's not about compassion, it's about control. Control over the narrative, control over the public's perception, control over who gets to be the hero and who gets to be the villain. Every time you hear a speech about standing with Kate from the same mouths that mocked Meghan Sussex's tears, remember, this is a performance. It's about clicks, clout, and keeping the royal drama alive. Richard Eden doesn't care about Catherine, he cares about Richard Eden, full stop. But this story isn't just about one man or one headline. It's about a system that's been fleecing the public for decades, feeding us half-truths and manufactured feuds to keep us distracted from the real issues. It's about a press that claims to speak for the people while serving the powerful. It's about a monarchy that hides behind tradition, while women like Meghan Sussex and Catherine pay the price. And most of all, it's about us, the viewers, the readers, the ones who consume these stories. We have the power to demand better. We can stop clicking on the hate. We can stop buying into the division. We can call out the crocodile tears for what they are and hold the media accountable for the harm they've caused. My dear viewers, I'm tired. Tired of watching the same media machine exploit royal women, pit them against each other, and profit from their pain. Tired of the double standards that lift one woman up while tearing another down. Tired of the lies dressed up as concern, the hypocrisy masquerading as journalism. And I know you're tired too. That's why we're here, not to sugarcoat, not to spin, but to speak the truth, unfiltered. If you're ready to join us, to demand accountability, to stand for justice, then hit that subscribe button. Together, we can shine a light on the crocodile tears and build a world where no woman's pain is used as a prop for profit. #Justice for Meghan.